Mr Chairman, I rise to take a short call in this title and commencement clause debate. I accept that it will be the last opportunity I have to speak to this bill before the vote is put. Mr Speaker, to echo the words of our Deputy Leader who has just spoken, this bill is a travesty in terms of its title. It is not a clarification. It is a gross extension of the range and powers of these agencies. Now, to be clear, the Labour opposition has never stated that we believe the state should be without these capabilities. But we are extremely clear, as were the 2,000+ people that crammed into the Auckland Town Hall last night to make their heartfelt opposition known, that it is not sufficiently balanced by proper and adequate safeguards of civil liberties and personal privacy. Let me summarise why that is the case. Mr Speaker, there are no protections against the mass surveillance of metadata because they are not included within the definition of, quote, personal communications set out in the bill. Rather, they fall within the definition of information infrastructure in the cybersecurity provisions that include, and I quote, all transmissions, close quote, including anything which goes across any electronic or wireless network. That means every email, every text message, every phone call, every website visit of every New Zealander is able to be surveilled, firstly, in terms of its metadata, without a warrant, and secondly, to establish a basis, and it may already be the case, for full interception without those warranting provisions, at least through the cybersecurity clause. Now, the Prime Minister went on television, and the Prime Minister has repeated in this House that he would personally rather resign before that happened. Well, why would he not write it into the bill? Because the fact remains that New Zealanders will never know, because there is no adequate oversight on this bill. There is no adequate oversight through the Intelligence and Security Committee. At best, it will get a compendium report at the end of the year, which will not include the details of what has been intercepted, merely the number of cases. That is not good enough. And if the Prime Minister wants New Zealanders to accept his word, then he should put an amendment in his own name in this bill, which gives effect to what he has said on nationwide television. And at the very least, he should stand and face a press conference without scuttling for the door when the heat gets turned up, and not have the temerity to insult our leader and other members of this House as being cowards when it is that member who has not completed his own press conference. But, sir, that is small beer besides the true nature of this bill. This bill opens a door that will be difficult ever to close. And to think that it is being done by the merest wafer-thin margin of one vote bought and sold for 30 pieces of silver in an overseas posting, I find absolutely reprehensible. It flies in the face of decades of bipartisan handling of intelligence and security matters. It is not good enough for New Zealanders. It is not good enough for our ancestors who fought for the freedoms that this House is blithely putting aside at the behest of one vote between a willing seller and a willing buyer. A buyer that was willing to trade New Zealanders' privacy down the river, but was not willing to come to this debate, was not willing even to answer the questions in a press conference, but was willing to insult David Shearer and other members of our party. Mr Speaker, this is a sad day for the New Zealand Parliament. This is a sad day for our democracy. This is a day when the New Zealand government can hang its head in shame. And it will be a day that New Zealanders remember when they go to cast their ballots in what is left of our democracy in next year's general election. There are issues that come and go, but they will remember that their freedoms have been compromised unnecessarily by a Prime Minister who may be adept at sleight of hand, but is clearly not deep in principle.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.